Good morning. It's Sunday, November 2nd, 2025. I'm standing on Park Point, about 3/4 of a mile from the end of the road. I parked there and walked here, continuing with the Monitors project of visiting all the parks in the city, from smallest to largest. We started at park number 162, and we have now worked our way up to park number 34. At 30.99 acres, it is the Park Point Hiking Trail Park, which is not at all distinguishable from the area back there, but it starts around right here. So you can walk from the end of the road all the way to the end of the point, a couple-mile walk, and it seems like all the same contiguous trail, and it is, but the ownership pattern is a lot of people own parts of Park Point. So there's the state owns part of it, the city owns some, at the end the federal government owns it. So if you look up those property records, it says owned by the United States of America. And even Superior Water, Light and Power owns some. Back a little ways, there's pump houses, one for Superior, one that goes to Cloquet. Superior Water, Light and Power owns that section. And so this park, the Park Point Hiking Trail Park, is just about a half-mile segment of the point here. Starts a little way past the pump houses and goes almost out to the old ruins of the historic lighthouse, but not quite, so we will not get to see that today. I have done other videos of that old historic lighthouse, so if anybody wants to look those up. And that's about it. I don't have any specific notes on this particular park when it was established or anything. Probably when the city was founded, they owned this land. Actually, somebody decided to call it a park. But anyhow, we're at a fairly wide section of the point here. You can see lots of red pines. There's some nice white pines in here. Over that way is Lake Superior. Over here is the Inner Harbor, and Superior is across the way there. City of Superior. There's a lot of poison ivy out here, and I was hoping to show you some of the more prolific beds of it, but the leaves are off, so it wouldn't look nearly as dramatic now. Little windfall there. And of course we're walking on sand dunes. Park Point is made of sand dunes here, at least this part of it is. Well, all of it is, I suppose, is this far down. Walking in sand. It's always good for a workout. I was looking up information. Oh, there's a, was that a, oh, maybe just, I don't know what kind of bird that is. Turkey vulture. I was looking up info about this trail online. And almost every review just says it's a nice, easy, level walk from the end of Minnesota Avenue. And it is level. I mean, it's not that hard, but I could see some people walking a mile out through the woods there which is fairly firm and hard packed trail. And then coming up on these dunes, you gotta slog through some pretty heavy sand at some point up here. That could be rough on some people. So I'm not even sure which is the real trail here. It kind of braids into several trails. The braid unravels into several trails, I should say. Oh, that wind is chilly. That's Superior over there again. Quite far into Superior. When I first moved to Duluth and came out here, I found it surprising that how far this point extends into what I would think should be Wisconsin, because Superior is right across the way there. Point is getting a little narrower here. So we have done, the Monitor has done an in-depth article on Park Point erosion. The break walls that exist both in Canal Park and out here at the end of the point prevent the natural transport of sand down the lake. So for the last 100+ years, Park Point Beach has not been getting replenished naturally with sand. So it erodes in places and builds up at other places. But okay, so here you can see some of that sandy area I was talking about. Like, if you're tired and you're walking and you've been walking for a mile or so, and you come up and you see you gotta slog up that hill through the heavy sand, it's not that exciting. So parts of Park Point are getting thinner and thinner, and the city and the federal government are looking at ways to mitigate that, to help that out. That study's ongoing, and you can look that story up online too on the Monitor. And here we are, the big lake. Look at that, there's somebody set up a jack-o'-lantern down on the beach there. So right about here approximately is the end of the Park Point hiking trail park, and then past here is federal government property, which again, you can just walk out there right to the end. Somebody carried the pumpkin all the way out here. That's kind of dedication. Unless they beached a boat and dropped it off. This is the site of pumpkin sacrifices, apparently. Pretty basic. Should call it classic Halloween jack-o'-lantern. And then, of course, that is downtown Duluth and East Duluth. Always walking on the edge when I can because it's so much easier on the pebbles than in the sand up there. Pretty calm lake, not glass, but barely any waves. I was thinking it would have been fun to come out here sometime when the waves are just roaring to do this walk, but the weather did not cooperate. Have to do these in order, so whatever conditions exist on the day that the number of that park comes up, that's what I document. So, as laid out in that article about erosion, this whole section was replenished with sand by the Army Corps of Engineers several years ago. And that's been going on for as long as Duluth has been around. They dredge sand out of the harbor and deposit it on the beaches because they just need a place to put it, for one thing. And now it has the added function of rebuilding the beach that's eroding away. They call it beach nourishment. In the old days, they called it dumping your dredge spoils somewhere. And there's one of the break walls that blocks the transport of sand down. Well, that one blocks it coming in from the South Shore. This entire beach is open to the public from here, from the end all the way to Canal Park. I always like that about Duluth. Actually, the bulk of the beach, like starting at the Park Point Rec area going toward town, is yet another park on the list. Bigger one. That'll be coming up at some point. Hopefully I'll have big roaring waves that day. You can hear that wind howling in the trees. You can see them blowing back there. Must be a south wind or west. Park Point makes a pretty good wind break because I don't feel much more than a mild breeze over here. And I interchangeably use Park Point and Minnesota Point. sort of thing. Minnesota Point refers to the whole thing from beginning to end, and Park Point is more referencing the built up area. But even that is not a rule, because everybody, including me, uses those words interchangeably no matter where you are out here. Alright, well, you can see a lot of these trees down here. These, when there was high water back in, I don't know, 2017, 18, 19, a lot of erosion took place out here, and a lot of these trees were undermined and they fell over. Here's the remnants of them. The water is now lower. As you can see, the water is way back now. It used to be in those years right up there. Well, there you go. Park number 34. Park Point Hiking Trail Park. Thanks for watching.